Hello, welcome to the Midterm Rental Mastery Show pop-up in the middle of the afternoon on, wait, what day is it? Wednesday? Is it Wednesday? Is that right?
Wednesday,
I think
27th.
so. I can't even keep up with the days at this point. So, Jermaine and I are live streaming because he made a post in the Midterm Rental Mastery Facebook group asking a question about a rent-to-own opportunity for midterm rental. So I asked if he wouldn't mind coming on to share with everyone as we kind of talk through this case study of how to acquire a property. Now, I don't actually know anything about what he's going to say right now, which is perfect because as you guys can see, he has on the Subto hat. I just don't wear my hat, but here's my little, again, my little Subto gold plaque that I got from Pace. And so we're just going to talk through all the stuff. I know nothing. And what I learned is that Pace gave me the best advice, which is you don't need to know everything to then go through it, because if you know too much, then it's just not a good thing. So first thing is, Jermaine, just introduce yourself. Tell us who you are, what you've got going on, your history, your background. And then you had some exciting news that you shared with me off camera. So I would love for you to share that with everybody else.
Okay. My name is Jermaine Jones. I'm in Denver, Colorado. My market area is Colorado, Arizona, Texas. I've been in real estate going on 10, 12 years. I have purchased properties. This will be my third property, but I did the traditional route. And then I came across the Subto, which I learned there was other options than getting a credit pulled and bank statements and all those other things. So right now I am just trying to focus on my my avatar, midterm rentals, and seeing how I can support my family and community and those in need. So that is what I'm doing.
Awesome. Okay. And then what information did you just share with me off camera?
So
that
I
just
just
happened last week?
retired. I just retired from being a dean at a high school last Friday. I've been doing it for 7 years in the education platform, and I am really intrigued how I can support those in the school and also in my community with this knowledge that I have and I'm willing to obtain. And so now I'm doing this full time. There's no
Let's
more going back to
go.
school and balancing work-life balance. Nope, this is a part of it. And my wife is also becoming a transaction coordinator this Saturday. She's testing, so whole family's involved. Daughter's ready to jump on board as well. Family business.
Love this so much. This is super duper exciting. So now it's like you can dive in, really look for those opportunities. And, you know, the extended stay, we all know how I feel about the word midterm rental, even though it's written all over the screen. But the midterm rental space is so great because you do get to serve so many people. And then because we're part of the creative financing world, we get to do things that not every traditional investor can do.
Right.
So you were telling me that you actually own some properties
Correct.
already that you bought traditionally.
Yes.
Cool. So what do you do with those right now?
One of them I live in and the other one we rent out. I've had a long-term rental for, going on 10 years. 10 years, and he's a good renter, has some struggles, but we worked it out. But yeah, I'm trying to scale up my business and just how to help more people in my community for sure.
That's awesome. Okay, perfect. So I was telling Jermaine that I'm actually creating a series for the YouTube channel that is focused on different ways to acquire properties that you can then use for extended stay rentals. So this was like perfect timing because literally I recorded the first video yesterday that I need to release that talks about the strategies. And now we're talking about rent to own or lease option. So for anybody that doesn't know what that means, it literally is exactly what it says is you speak with an owner. They are willing to not sell the property to you, but they're willing to lease it to you with the option to purchase. Now, the cool part is you don't have to exercise the option. It's totally up to you. But the best part about it is you get to lock in a purchase price today for a future purchase. So Jermaine, tell me about because I don't know anything about what you're about to say. So other than it's with an agent. So let's talk about it.
Yeah, I can kind of tell you how I came across this property. I'm really good at networking. I've talked to a few local people here in Colorado, agents and contractors, and a contractor that I'm working with out here in Denver. It came across her table, and we trying to bring value to each other. And she's like, "Hey, I have a deal," and one deal didn't fall through, and another deal came through. And today, I found out about this property. And the funny thing is, I live in this area, so I know the value of this property, and it's all about location, location, location. So the contractor sent the agent information, my information, and we started talking this morning. And we talked about multiple different ways of purchasing the property. They're really open, but I'm trying to see what bets fit me in my midterm rental portfolio. So,
Okay, perfect. So let's talk about why you would not buy this one traditionally. Do you know anything about the mortgage? Do you know anything about the seller situation? Anything at all?
I do.
Okay.
So what I found out is the agent actually lived in the property, and she sold it last year. I think in November. The interest on this property is a 7.25, and they just renovated it. It looks amazing, even with the staging and without the staging. Funny thing is, the next 4 hours, I'll be walking the property myself to make sure everything is legit. And the person, this was their first like project. I think they're like into fix and flipping, and so they renovated, fixed it up, and they paid down the purchase price of like $80,000. So there's $80,000 of equity into this property.
Okay.
And so, yeah, right now they're just trying to sell this one, and they're on to their next project already. They just don't want to pay 2 mortgages. So,
Oh, those are wonderful. One of
yeah.
my last properties I purchased Subto was a military family.
Mm,
They had VA loan and they needed to, well, actually they were already moved. So they
yep.
were already paying 2 mortgages. So they were extremely happy that I was able to make it stop. That's their
Mm,
number one thing, was to stop the bleeding. So that's really awesome. So the whole point of this thing is the more you know about what the seller needs and what they have going on, the more you can help them.
yeah.
So did you say what the interest rate was on this one, or did you know
Yes,
what the one is?
7.25, which is really, yeah. Yep.
Okay.
I know.
So, woof. Okay. So, and what's the PITI or the monthly payment?
The monthly payment, including the HOA, is 2,100.
Woof. Okay.
Now
That's not terrible,
actually,
actually.
that's in Colorado. That is really good.
Yeah, I was gonna
Really,
say
really good.
that's not terrible.
Yeah.
All right.
I have the
So,
rental. I have the rent, the basic rent in that area. It's around 21 to 23s on the high side. And then
okay.
also, so yeah, the numbers will do good, but I need to make profit.
Yes. And so it doesn't necessarily make sense, right, on this one to take over a 7.25 interest rate. That is not what we're looking to buy into.
Mm-mm.
Like the last one I purchased was 5%, which really is at the top of my range. It's just that it's a 2022 build, so it's like a brand new house.
Yeah.
And then the one before that is a 3.7% interest rate. So we're really buying the rates when we're looking at, the Subto. So, all right, so we've got a 7.25% interest rate. We also have an HOA.
Yes.
Now, do you know what the rules are for the HOA as far as
No,
rentals
I
are
was
concerned?
when I was messaging everyone in the Facebook. I was going to look up the HOA codes and everything. I actually was going to go there today and talk to the agent and see if they knew, since she lived there prior, and then also see if I can get a copy of that in building. So I'm doing all that today.
Okay, perfect. So let me give you a little hack if it's available. So for the HOAs, do you know the name of the HOA community?
I do not. I do not.
Go on Redfin.
Redfin.
Okay. Go on Matter of fact, let me see if I can show this real quick. It
I'm
doesn't
already on
require
Redfin.
it, but okay, perfect. I was going to do a share screen, but we'll just keep talking. So on Redfin, the thing I love about Redfin is that you can actually see the name of the HOA community. You do not get this information on Zillow, which, funny enough, I was going to record a video about this because I did this for somebody else earlier today. So this is exciting. Okay. So on Redfin, you can actually see the name of the HOA community. You have to scroll down a bit on the page just to look for the name. So you'll see the section where it talks about the community, it talks about the HOA fees, etc. They have the name on there. A lot of times the HOAs, not all, but sometimes the HOA actually has their CC&Rs, which is all of their covenants and rules, listed on the website for the community. So before you start making all the extra calls, which, by the way, the agent is required to get that information to you. If you, especially if you have it under contract, they have to give you the HOA rules. But If you can find it online yourself just to do some digging, then great. The other thing you can do is, even if you do find it, and if you do, just open up the CCNRs. And I like to use keywords like the word rent. So if you do a Control F, if you have a Windows computer, or Command F, if you have a Mac, which I'm still learning how to use my Mac that Pace bought for me because my other computer was total crap. But so either one of those functions and type in the word rent, it gets you to look for key terms that focus on rentals. Now, I use the word rent because I like the short version just in case somebody spelled something wrong or something stupid, instead of putting rental in there. So if the rules are listed, great, read them. And then here's the next thing that you can do. Pick up the phone and just call them. Okay.
Yep.
And what you tell them, I literally just did this today. Okay. So what you do is, so side note, Justin said, I love your background. Justin, you literally taught me how to use Canva. So thank you so much. Because without you showing me how to use Canva, I'd be totally useless. So I'm so grateful for you, Justin. Thank you so much. So anyway, I called one today for somebody who sent me a property they were looking at. And I'm like, well, I'll just pick up the phone. So what you say to them is, hey, I'm thinking about buying a property in this community, and I just want to know what the rules are for rentals. And then you stop talking.
Yep.
Okay. Don't add in, like, we know this about, especially when we do creative finance, which is if we talk too much, we're not listening. So, and my number one rule, I think Caroline's on here, is no multiple choice. So I'm not going to say, hey, can you tell me the rules for rentals? Can you do this? Can you do that? Can you do more? And no, you just ask the question and then you stop. And if you have a problem with stopping, the mute button is your friend, because you can keep talking and they cannot hear you, which forces you to listen.
Yeah.
Okay. So I learned that because I was one of those giving people multiple choice options. And what I realized is, if you give too many options, number one, they only hear the last thing that you said, and you're taking away their opportunity to give you more information. So if you call the HOA and you say, I'm just wondering what your rules are about rentals, stop. And then you just let them talk. So if they say, yeah, we can do rentals, we require you to send us a notice if you want to rent. You're always going to ask, do they have a restriction on the percentage of rentals that are available in the community? And if they have reached their limit. These are extremely important at any point when you're dealing with anything in an HOA, because if they have a percentage that they've already met, that means you have to go on a wait list, which means you cannot rent your property, which means you just bought a house that you can't do anything with, because now you have to get on a wait list.
Yes.
And then if their wait list is long, which you should ask, if their wait list is like 6 months long, or they got 20 people in front of you, you might want to rethink your opportunity. Next thing is, you want to know, after they tell you the rules for the rentals, do they require you to notify the HOA when you have guests or tenants? I call them guests, but to the HOA, they're tenants. Are you required to notify the HOA? Now, I have one that I have to, I have to notify the HOA anytime we have people change over. So important, because you need to know the process. You need to know the rules. Okay. So the next thing is, after they tell you what the rules are for rentals, then you ask them, hey, do you have any timeline restrictions? Stop. Don't explain what that means. Wait for them to answer. Then you give an explanation if required. Because a lot of them will tell you, oh, we don't allow Airbnb, which we all know Airbnb is not a thing. It is not a building. It's a platform. I just had that argument with an HOA like a month ago. So, and I won my hearing by using some of that logic. So, Airbnb is not it's a platform. And so, but people are going to say that. So you're used to it. And they may say, we don't allow Airbnb. And what would you say to that? If I said to you, Jermaine, we don't allow Airbnbs, what would you say?
Do you allow Zillow or Redfin or anyone else? Verbo?
No. What you say is, what do you mean by that? The reason you're asking them what they mean is you need to understand what their interpretation of Airbnb is.
Right.
Okay. Because some people think all Airbnb means is all short-term rentals. Remember, this is the argument that I just had with an HOA. So I'm like super fresh on this one. Okay. So you're asking them, what do you mean by that? It's not our job to interpret exactly what they mean. It's our job to ask the question.
Gotcha.
So if they say, well, you can't do, people coming in and out every day. Oh, okay. You don't like short-term rentals. Well, is there a timeline associated with that? Stop.
Mm-hmm. Timeline associated. Gotcha.
You see, I'm not giving them the answers. I'm asking the questions and I'm just letting them expand on it. So if they say, well, you have to do at least 30 days. Oh, okay. Okay, perfect. So what you're really saying is that you just don't want people in and out every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we don't want. Okay, great. And is it written in the CC&Rs or the any of your documentation about the timeline? Is that written somewhere that I would be able to see it if I were to buy a property here? Yeah, it's written. Great. You make sure, if you haven't found that yourself, that as you're going through it, you look for it and see it in writing for yourself before you finalize any contracts.
Gotcha.
So that would be part of your due diligence. Okay. Extremely important. Even if you're going to do a lease option or rent to own, like you were talking about. Okay.
Mhm.
And we'll get to that. But these are the progressions before you even get to that point, because what you want to do is make sure that the property you're looking at actually fits what you want to use it for.
Right.
Because if it doesn't, then there's no point in going down the rabbit hole of seeing if it's a deal or seeing if the person's open to a lease option or
Mhm.
a seller finance or what. None of that matters if whatever exit strategies you may have don't work, because the HOA rules don't work.
Right.
So it's almost like quick underwriting when somebody sends me something and they're like, I want to know if this will work as a midterm rental. And I ask them, what's the principal, interest, taxes, and insurance? That's the PITI for anybody that's watching. And if they tell me, I had one yesterday, they said the PITI is $3,700. I asked 4 times what the long-term rent rate was. I got every answer except for that one.
Mm.
And again, the person, I don't think it was her intent, so that's fine. We talked about it later. But of course, the PITI is less than the PITI is right at or just below that what the rent rate is. So
Right.
it doesn't work as a long-term rental. Now, I would never take on a property that has a $3,700 a month payment. Also, I live in Virginia. Our payments are not that high. You got like a $1 million plus house if you have a $3,700 a month payment. Well, maybe not now with the interest rates, but that's a whole nother thing. So make sure you know the HOA rules. That's extremely important. And if you call the HOA, just ask those questions in the sequence that I gave them to you, because
Okay.
they get you to the answer, but also it gets you to the understanding of why they're saying what they're saying. Now, if they have a 6-month rule, you might be able to work around that. I'm just saying. Okay. So next. Now, what are your other strategies that you're looking at as far as the acquisition? We've already ruled out that you do not want to go get a traditional loan.
Correct.
Okay, so got that out. Because all you're doing is literally taking one loan and replacing it with another loan that is probably about the same interest rate as an investor loan, or maybe a point higher. So 7.25, 8%, because I've seen some people getting somewhere between 7 and 8. So you're literally replacing one loan with another, but you're just paying the bank more money.
Right.
So banks make enough money. We don't need to give them any more. Okay, perfect. So traditional purchase is out.
Yep.
Subto was out because the interest rate's not that great.
Correct.
Okay. So what's next?
Seller financing.
Which can do seller finance because they have a loan.
Yes, so I don't know if it will be called a hybrid, but they want 10% down for down payment, and then the sellers will finance the rest of it. So kind of keep it in their name.
Perfect. So that is a hybrid. So it's subject to or taking over the payments, and then the rest of it is seller finance, except the Subto part doesn't work. So then if the Subto part doesn't work, seller finance is irrelevant. Right? Because remember, if you're doing that, you still have to take over the primary loan.
Exactly.
So now what you've done is, not only do you have the primary loan at 21 or 2,200?
2,100.
Okay. So the primary loan at 2,100, but then you still have to make another payment on top of that for the seller's equity.
Exactly.
So now you've got 2 payments, plus if you roll this over into now, if you actually transfer the deed, if that's what you guys have talked about, now what happens is your taxes increase, because right now it's probably a homestead exemption because a person lives in the house, right? It's not under an LLC or anything right now, correct?
Right. No, it's not.
Okay, perfect. And then the next thing we run into is insurance goes up because now it's going to landlord policy instead of a homeowner's policy. So you've got increases in not only the taxes, but also the insurance. And then on top of the primary underlying mortgage, you have the seller finance portion, which you have to account for. Now, I don't know if you've gone through and structured what that might look like at all. Have you looked at, and this is more so, I would tell you to still walk through the process for yourself, not necessarily to present it to them. But if you were to look at the seller finance portion, have you done that already?
No, I have not. Everything is fresh. Like 30 minutes before I posted, like, how do I structure this? Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. So let's do, hold on. I still have my work computer plugged in. I'm like, why can't I get to my secondary screen? Because I got my stuff plugged in somewhere else. All right. Have you ever done a seller finance before or had to do something where you're looking at the seller's equity?
No, I have not.
All right. Let me see if I will do a screen share real quick. Okay, so a lot of people like to use Bankrate. Balloon calculator. I'll get these letters backward. Balloon calculator.
Bankrate.com.
Here we go. Now you can use Bankrate, but I'm going to show you another resource that I like to use. And the reason I'm going to show you this one is because it calculates balloons. So, all right. So this, I'm going to put the link in the chat for anybody that wants it. All right. So, and some of you may not be familiar with creative finance, and that's fine. We're literally having a creative finance discussion on how you can acquire properties to use in your midterm rental business. But so this is the Farmers and Merchant State Bank mortgage balloon calculator. The reason I like this is because you get to play with the numbers, you get to play with sale prices and down payments. So how much equity does the seller have?
80,000.
All right. The seller has 80K in equity. Do they want 10% of the purchase price or do they want 10% of their equity?
Purchase price.
Which is very interesting because that number is extremely high, right? And the mortgage isn't changing.
Yep.
So I dealt with this weekend because my husband and I are looking for a new property that we want to buy subject to. And I had one come up and it's a really expensive house. I'm not even going to say the number. It's just very expensive. And the seller wanted 20% of the purchase price. I'm like, yeah, but your equity's like 200 or 300 grand. Like, I mean, I could maybe give you like 10% of that, but why would I give you 10% or 20%?
Right.
Purchase price for what? Why would I do that? If that's the case, I'm just going to go get a loan. It's not that serious. The house needed work. I'm like, no, that's not going to fly. So, okay, so we have 80K in equity. So we're going to put $80,000. This is just the seller finance portion because the fixed part, for the most part, the principal and interest on the primary loan are not changing.
Right.
The taxes and insurance may change, but you got a framework for that. Okay, so we have 80K and they want 20% down of the entire purchase price.
Yeah, 28,400.
That's how much they want, 28,000 down. Okay.
Ridiculous.
Now remember, that 28 grand is not going toward the mortgage. It's going in their pocket.
Yep.
So all you're going to be doing really is reducing the amount that they have on their equity.
Yep.
That you owe them. So this is why I love this calculator because Bankrate, you can't, excuse me, you can't finagle the balloon periods the same on Bankrate. So this is why I love this one. Okay. Have they talked about interest or anything of that sort?
No.
Okay.
We haven't got that far yet. Not yet.
All right. Let's just assume it's 0% interest to start. And for anybody that says that you cannot do 0% interest, okay, on a seller finance, you can do whatever you want. There's this thing called imputed interest with the IRS. That is up to the seller to deal with. If your purchase price is what they want and they're okay covering the difference on their own taxes, that's up to them. But you could just sell at 0%. Excuse me. It's whatever you agree to. This cold is kicking my butt. Okay. So let's just assume it's 0% interest right now. And have they talked about a balloon term? I know you said this is fresh, though.
They have not, but for the rent to own or lease option, they said 3 years.
Okay. So let's assume this is going to be a 3-year balloon if it was a seller finance, which, by the way, I would never do in my life.
Yeah.
I take that back. I would definitely do a 3-year balloon if the amount I had to pay them on their seller finance was only like $5,000. Then yeah, I'd do a 3-year balloon, sure, because it's real cheap and I could give them $5,000 today. I'm just not going to. So I would never do a 3-year balloon because number one, you don't have to. And two, if we look at that as an overall picture, if we have to refinance this house out in 3 years, the market goes in 7-year cycles.
Yep.
We're like at the beginning of the cycle change. So that's not a thing. I think the lease balloon I have on any of mine is 7 years.
7 years.
Yeah, which just started like July of last year. So we got plenty of time. But I tried to avoid them at all. And my other one that I just bought, which was a 2022 build, it was a pre-foreclosure. It was a vacant property. It was an expired listing. So I'm expanding my channel to talk about all things real estate, especially creative finance as it relates to what I'm doing on the midterm side. And that one does not have a balloon. I don't have to pay that one off until 28 years from now.
Oh, wow.
Yep. It's great. Okay. So we're going to look at a 30-year amortization. And what that means for anybody that doesn't know is, hey, Earl, I just talked to him for a long time today, like an hour. He let me lovingly yell at him. So it was very nice. Okay. So we're going to do a 30-year amortization. And for anybody that doesn't know, amortization means just the time frame in which the payments are going to be spread out over. But the balloon piece means that we have to cash everything out in this time frame, even though the payment's going to be based on 30 years. So I like to give explanations because in my heart, I'm a teacher. So, all right. So this stuff doesn't matter. That part doesn't matter at all. So we can just take that out. And closing costs really doesn't matter either. So we don't have to have that in here because the piece that we're really looking at is the monthly payment, the balloon payment, the amounts of the loan, and the total paid. Now, because we have this one right now at 0% interest, which, by the way, if I gave somebody 28 grand, you're not getting any interest from me at all. Okay. And we're going to go into the rent to own option, but we're working through what this would look like if it was a creative finance where it was a hybrid, a Subto and a seller finance.
Gotcha.
So 3 years, this is what your monthly payment would be to them. $143 to the seller. They got their 28 grand. And really, this is the amount of the remaining amount, which is this minus this. There's no interest involved. So the total you owe in 3 years is the $46,583.10. This accounts for all the payments that you made. By having 0 interest, every payment that you make goes straight to principal.
Principal. Yep.
Okay. So, excuse me. So you can even look at the amortization schedule here if you want. So this tells you how each one of your payments applies. I love this calculator. You can literally go through the whole thing. You could even send this over to the seller and just show them, hey, this is how this breaks out. Yeah. If, let's say they wanted 3% interest, now your payment goes up to $217 because now you have interest that's being accrued. And you can see how much is going to principal every month and how much is going to interest, right? So on a 3-year balloon, at the end of the 3 years, you would owe $48,486. Now, the question would be, if you have to refinance the entire loan to get the whole thing out of their name, or if they only want their portion paid off.
Gotcha.
Because you can do that where you're like, hey, your balloon portion's at 3 years, but the primary loan is forever, or that one's 10 years. So this is why you got to know what people are looking for. So I love this calculator. Love, love, love this calculator. Now, we've already determined, excuse me, guys, if you hear me like coughing or whatever, but I have a really bad cold that I just cannot shake. It's like going around my house. So, all right, so I'm going to stop my screen share now. So, that calculator is awesome, by the way. So this is how I go through and structure out my deals using that calculator. So now let's talk about the lease with the option to buy, which you said the agent brought that up, correct?
Correct.
Okay. What did the agent say?
So after we talked, they sat for a while, and 10 minutes later they said, "Well, you could lease to own." And then I was like, "That's a good idea." And then I didn't know all of this before I actually said that. And then they kind of told me what they were trying to do. So they said that after they left it on the market for about 3 more weeks, if they did not get a buyer, because they already reduced the price by $10,000, they was going to go ahead and rent it out and then put it on the market later on this year. So that's why that agent told me that they may want to rent it out, lease to own.
Okay. Now, the cool part is if this was any other interest rate, by the way, this would be wonderful for several reasons, right? Because they don't want to pay 2 mortgages.
Mm-hmm.
They've already said that they're willing to rent it, but they don't really want to be landlords because they're willing to sell the house again later this year, thinking something's going to change in the market. So these are like the ideal ones for creative finance opportunities because you're solving so many problems, except the interest rate kind of stinks. So there's that. Now, let's talk about the rent to own. So the question that you asked in the Facebook group was, first thing was about structuring a down payment.
Yes.
Okay? Lease options, rent to owns don't have down payments.
See, I knew something was wrong. I was like, that's too much money. $28,000. I might just buy the house. Well, I'm going to give you that and then rent.
Yes, that is a fact. However, that's not actually the primary issue. The primary issue, number one, is there are no down payments in a lease option or rent to own. They are non-refundable option fees. It is really important that you do not call them a down payment because technically you're a glorified renter with the option to purchase, but not the requirement. So a lease with the option to buy is different than a lease purchase because a lease purchase obligates you to purchase the property. You're just leasing it for a term and then you are absolutely going to purchase it. A lease with the option says, I am a renter for the next, they said 3, so let's just go with 3 years. I'm a renter for the next 3 years, but I don't have to buy the house. But if I do, we've already agreed to a purchase price.
Right.
And so by agreeing to the purchase price, like what was the purchase price they gave you?
The purchase price is going
or
to be
on market
280,400.
Okay, so let's just round up to 280. By the way, there was a day in life that I never would have rounded numbers, but Pace he got me in the habit of not overcomplicating things. So we're just going to go with 280. Okay. So the purchase price they have it's at 280. Let's say that they are willing to do a rent to own at 280, which most investors will not do, right? We're going to increase the price. And the reason why you're increasing the price as an investor is because you're locking in a purchase price for a future date and time. And so you're going to want to try to account for some level of appreciation over time. But your renter is probably going to lock in some equity if the market appreciates.
Right.
But of course, we're in a different cycle right now. So those are all things that need to be considered. So let's say that you did a lease with the option to buy at 280, which means in 3 years, your purchase price is going to be the same today as it is in 3 years, if that's what they're willing to do. Now, I don't know if they know that, but whatever. If they do it, then that's great for you. Okay. But there are no down payments in a lease option. There are non-refundable option fees. So what happens is if you give them $28,000 and you don't exercise the option to purchase, you just lost $28,000. That's why you would never do it.
That's exactly what I said. Yep.
That's right. So now if you're looking at a lock-in of a 280 purchase price, and let's say that you give them a non-refundable option fee, which is equivalent to about 2 to 3% of the purchase price, which is what? I don't know what my calculator is.
Like 8,000, 9,000.
Okay. So let's say that you give them an $8,000 non-refundable, which actually is somewhat reasonable. Okay. An $8,000 non-refundable option fee. What you're giving them is locking in the purchase if you choose to exercise it. right? They can't sell it, but you don't have to buy it. So
Right.
they can't sell it anytime between these 3-year period because they have an option locked in, but you can walk away at any point. Okay, this is
Mhm.
why lease options are kind of cool, which is not a bad thing. If you're like, hey, I'm really interested in this property, maybe I do want to come in and purchase it later. But right now it just doesn't make sense. Maybe the market will change at the end of my lease option term, and then I can decide if I want to go purchase it. And if so, I've already locked in some equity.
Mm.
And if I'm using it as a midterm rental, that means that I've also been cash flowing on this property, hopefully, if you do it right, through this
Mhm.
whole process. Okay. So that non-refundable option fee is literally you locking in the option to purchase, and usually it's just a flat rent rate for the whole 3 years, unless you guys agree to some graduated rate. So if you say, I'll give you the $8,000 non-refundable option fee, by the way, make sure they tell you what they mean by lease option. You let them lay out all the terms
Mm.
before you say anything. Remember, we don't make offers, because now what we're doing is potentially bidding against ourselves. It's one
Yep.
thing I learned when I used to handle injury claims. I just let the person tell me what they want, right? It's the same thing in creative finance. It's the same thing I do when I work my midterm rental contracts. Tell me what you want, and then we can work backward from there. It's reverse engineering. Okay,
Mhm.
so if you are you ask them what they want, and if you come back and say, hey, I'm willing to do an $8,000 non-refundable option fee, that's money they get to keep whether you exercise the option or not.
Right.
And then we do a 3-year lease with the option to buy, and I would still like to pay $2,200 a month in rent, whatever market rent is, or you might even say $2,000. Now, you're an investor, so your job is to push the limits. You're not a homeowner living in the house. You're not a traditional renter. So you can ask. The worst they can say is no.
Exactly.
That's it.
And
But
it's
if
not
you
gonna hurt
don't
me.
ask, the answer is automatically no. Okay.
Gotcha.
So you can say that because you already know what their PITI is. What is their goal? Their goal is not to pay 2 mortgages.
Mhm.
If you've just given them $8,000, they can use that toward the difference. Or they may be okay paying $200 a month toward the mortgage on their own, just to have somebody in there, not to have to pay the whole $2,000.
Exactly.
It's very possible. But worst case, pay them market rent. If they don't balk at it, there you go. Pay market rent, lock that rate in, get your paperwork, and then that's it. You have control over that property for the next 3 years with the option to decide what you want to do with it. Now, here's what happens on the back end. This is why it's really important to structure these appropriately with the language that you use in the writing. If you choose to exercise the option, that $8,000 should be used as a credit toward the purchase price. They still get to keep the money in their pocket, but it's a paper credit on the back end.
Okay.
Just like when if anybody's ever done new construction on the house and they're like, yeah, we're giving, $20,000 in incentives. That money is not coming out of their pocket. It's a paper credit on paper. That's it. So
Okay.
this is the same thing. Now, what you also can negotiate is rent credits, which they basically turn into incentives at the end, where you can say, well, if I pay you $2,200 a month, if I exercise the option, I want $200 of that to be at a credit at the end when I purchase the property. So
Mm.
now, let's say you do a $200 rent credit for 36 months. That's another $7,200 toward the purchase price, plus the $8,000. So now that's $15,200 that you already locked into the purchase price,
Mm.
plus whatever equity you walk into because of appreciation at the end of the term.
Okay.
And if the house doesn't appreciate and it's not doing what you want it to do, get out, because guess what? You're still a renter.
It's only 15,000. In 3 years, I can do a lot with that.
Well, but it's not 15,000. It's only the 8,000 that you put in and whatever you paid in rent. But remember, if you had arbitraged the property, you still would have spent the same money, except for the upfront 8,000 to lock in the purchase price with the option to buy it later.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Is that helpful?
Oh yes. Oh yes. For
Now,
sure.
now you see why I'm like, this would be a really good one. Somebody asked what's the name of the calculator. It's the Farmers and Merchant State Bank balloon calculator. I'll put the link in the chat again. Hopefully it comes through Facebook. You guys need to come over to YouTube. But So this is why I love creative finance. It's super fun because you get to come up with all these cool different things and different ways. I was on a Zoom last night, pasted the family night Zoom, and I was on there and he kept me in Pace prison. Those were his words, not mine. Pace prison for 2 hours because I asked him a question about social media. And it was really cool just to listen to him talk about lease options and some other things that he's changed his strategies on. So, I love that you brought this up in the Facebook group. And again, I just wanted to share it with everybody because I'm about to go in on some creative finance, like different ways to get into midterm rentals, not just creative, but just different ways. And so this was so timely, Jermaine. Like, I love that you asked that question and you were willing to come on here
Oh
um,
yeah.
to talk about it in public too, which I'm still like slightly an introvert. That's what I
Are
told
you though?
yeah, kind of. Kind of. It sounds good to say. I don't know. So, do you have any other questions? Anything that might help you go back to the agent and just continue your conversation?
Yes, too. So would it be? I know it would be best for me to talk to the actual sellers or the owners themselves, because the agent did mention to me that she is also a wholesaler. So I'm just kind of thinking of like, how much are you getting out of this twice because you sold the property originally and now you're coming back again. I don't want to say double dipping, but
That has nothing to do with you, honestly.
okay,
Agents buy and sell the same property all the time.
really.
So good for them. Oh yeah, because think about this. Agents build relationships. That's their job.
Mm-hmm.
My opinion is if you're an agent and you sold someone a house and they don't come back to you when they're ready to sell it again, something went wrong in that relationship,
Right.
or
Yeah.
your marketing just fell off, or you didn't stay in contact with your sphere of influence. That's what they call it in the agent world. Look, I'm a licensed agent. I just don't know how to be a realtor. Like, that's my running joke. Okay. I have a license, but I don't know anything about being a realtor. But I know that much because it translates everywhere. And so a lot of people will buy and sell houses for people multiple times. Like, my condo I bought when I relocated back to Virginia because I did a corporate relocation. I bought a condo, worked with one agent, and when I got ready to sell it 3 years later, or 2 years later, because I decided to take a travel job and I wanted to be homeless for the next 3, 4, 5, 6 years. I don't remember how long it was. I called the same agent and I said, "Hey, I'm ready to sell this place." Good for him that he got paid twice. Good for him. But I trusted him. I'd already worked with him and he knew the property. So what I would do if I'm you is congratulate that person for getting the opportunity to make money off that same house twice.
Right. Okay.
That's what you
Yeah.
do.
Okay.
And oh, see, somebody on Facebook, I don't know who it is, just says Facebook user. I'm a realtor, but I don't know what I'm doing except I generate leads for my husband. There you go. I don't know how to be a realtor either, but I know how to lock up deals and do creative finance and do midterm rentals. So, I mean, I know what I know. At some point in life, maybe I'll go use my license for something other than the MLS. But who knows? So yeah, congratulate that person. Make like, hey Viv, so yeah, now I definitely know what she's talking about. She just got her license and she doesn't do anything as a realtor either. So this is lovely. But yeah, so
And
congratulate them, build a relationship with that agent. But when you go to them, you ask them, what is the seller looking to accomplish? What are they looking for? What have you guys already talked about?
right. Right.
Find that out first. The fact of the matter is, if that agent's a wholesaler, they're already open to different alternatives. And if they brought up lease option to you, that is not a thing that most agents will bring up. So
Oh.
you're already in. Oh yeah.
Hmm.
A lot of agents have no clue what that. They've heard rent to own, but they don't do it. So I went to an open house. I told you that house my husband and I were thinking about buying. I went and met with the agent over the weekend, and she's like, I know what rent to own is, but I've never actually done it. And she's been an agent for 25 years.
Oh, wow.
So again, you would think that agents know it all, but they don't. Look, Viv, I think she's still on here. How hard was it to get a license? It's not that hard. You literally study whatever the course is, you go take a test and then you're done. That does not mean you actually know anything. It just doesn't.
That's true.
So just like in creative finance, I could go take a course. I can go sign up. See, she said it's easy. I could go take a course with anybody and then think that I know what I'm doing, but I don't necessarily know. So
Okay. I can do that.
Just ask the questions. And if you have anything you want to know, just reach back out to me.
Okay.
And, we'll see if it makes sense or if you could figure it out. I would venture to say that if they're looking for this high amount of money, then you're going to have a little bit of a struggle. And that's okay, because it's so easy for us to say no. A
Yeah.
lot of people think like, oh my gosh, somebody said yes to something, so that means that I have to
Follow through.
make it work. No.
Hmm.
So my philosophy is, it is not my job to solve someone else's problem by creating my own. It's not your job to create your own problem, create more problems just by helping somebody else out. Like, it all has to balance. It has to be a win-win on all sides.
Yep. Yep. Okay. Thank you. I will do that. The other question is contracts contracts. Where would I find contracts? Kind of look in the Subto community or your Facebook to find arbitrage contracts, rent to own contracts. I just want the correct verbiage when I'm talking to the sellers or HOA or everything. So.
Yeah, so just the HOA conversation is just a conversation, and then you're getting the paperwork so that you can read it for yourself. That's it.
Okay.
Arbitrage, look, you can write whatever you want in these agreements. I like to use state lease agreements, and then I just make my own terms that I add on to them. Like, if it's an arbitrage, I literally am going to use a state lease, and then I am going to add on the right to lease, to sublease, and then whoever's responsible for maintenance or whatever, like, those are the additional terms I'm going to write in. But otherwise, I just use a state lease. I like to keep it simple. Some lawyer already wrote it. I don't necessarily need to overcomplicate things. Look, so Jose said most only know what they practice, not all they have been taught. And Jose is a realtor in Florida, in Orlando. I'm going to see you soon because I'm coming to Squad Up Summit. Jose, I think he has something to give me that some other person gave me. So I guess I'll get it then. Okay, great. But yeah, contracts, if you need the ones that we're talking about, you could get those in Subto, but also ask the agent, do you have a contract that you want to use?
Okay.
And you can always just add whatever addendums and stuff that you need to.
Okay.
Our job is not to overcomplicate it, which I used to do a lot. I just try to keep things really simple because I don't want to think that hard, because I get headaches really easily. Cool. Anything else?
No, this has been a blessing. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
All right, cool. Well, thanks everybody for jumping in on this like pop-up live, which went way longer than I expected, but 45 minutes now. I got to go back to work because I still have a job and I actually like it. So thank you guys for watching. Really, really appreciate it. And we're going to do a lot more like this. I love the case studies and just walking through them. So, and then because Jermaine, he's on this side. Because Jermaine was on the screen, you have to listen to me talk the whole time. That was exciting. Wonderful. All right, cool. Thanks everybody for watching.